What is Promise.reject in JavaScript 4? Imagine you're building a web app and want to handle errors smoothly. You might wonder how to create a promise that is already in a failed state. That's where Promise.reject comes in. It's a simple tool in JavaScript that helps you make a promise that is rejected right from the start. This is especially useful when you want to simulate an error or stop a process early. A promise in JavaScript is like a placeholder for a task that will finish later. It can be pending, fulfilled, or rejected. When a promise is rejected, it means something went wrong. Instead of waiting for an operation to fail naturally, you can use Promise.reject to immediately create a rejected promise with a specific reason. This reason can be any value, but most often it's an error object or a message explaining what went wrong. Using Promise.reject is handy in many situations. For example, if a user isn't authorized to access a part of your app, you can reject the promise right away with an error message. This makes error handling more straightforward because you can catch the rejection later in your promise chain. It's also useful for testing how your code handles errors by deliberately creating rejected promises to see if your catch blocks work properly. When you write code, you might think about throwing an error or returning Promise.reject. Throwing an error inside a promise will cause the promise to reject, but Promise.reject explicitly creates a rejected promise. Both methods cause rejection, but Promise.reject is clearer when you want to return a rejected promise directly. For example, if a function expects to return a promise but needs to fail immediately, Promise.reject is a neat way to do that. Let's say you want to reject a promise because a user is not logged in. You could write return promise, reject new error, user not logged in. This instantly gives you a promise that is rejected with that error. Later, you can handle it with catch to show an error message or take other actions. Asynchronous JavaScript, managing errors is key. Promise.reject helps you control the flow by creating rejected promises when needed. It's a simple but powerful way to handle failure scenarios explicitly. Remember, it's not just about catching errors later but also about creating clear, predictable error states in your code. So whether you're testing, handling errors, or controlling flow, Promise.reject is a handy tool to keep your asynchronous code organized and reliable.